Welcome to this retrospective / review for the video game Sonic the Hedgehog, the original one on the Sega Genesis, or Mega Drive as it was known outside of North America. And before I jump into this review, I do want to go ahead and give a little bit of my own personal history with Sonic, because it's not very deep, to say the least. Basically, this is the only 16-bit version of the game I ever played, and it was many years after it came out on the Genesis. And the other games I played in the Sonic series were the Sonic 1 and 2 on the Master System. I emulated those. Wasn't a big fan of those, to be completely transparent. And also Sonic R, because the only Sega console I had back in the day was a Sega Saturn, and I did have Sonic R on there. So that's literally the extent of my familiarity with the Sonic series. So not very familiar. Now, I did play this game probably not long before I started making videos on YouTube, and it was one of the earliest Sega Genesis games I ever tried playing. I mean, I played other stuff like Golden Axe, Shinobi, things along those lines, but I'd say this is one of the earliest ones I started playing. So initially, I think on How Long to Beat, that website, I gave it a ranking of 80% because I thought it was a good game. Now, I've played a lot of Genesis games since then, a lot of different platformers, action games, run and guns, games that kind of have a fairly similar play style, or with obvious differences and whatnot. And obviously Sonic is one of those games that was kind of a inspiration, or copycat inspiration, as it were, to a lot of companies back in the day to come up with their own mascot type games. So definitely very influential in that regards. But for me, it is still a fairly new series. And like I said, I gave it initially a ranking of 80%. And so the question is, do I continue to think that the score of 80% is a viable score for this game? And I'd say probably in retrospect, I'd say yes. Now, the game, obviously, let's go ahead and start with some of the positives. Personally, I think it looks great. I think the graphics still hold up on the game, and the music is very good in a lot of space. Some of it actually really good. They're just, some of the tunes are just very catchy. They stick in your head, and I mean, they're just good music, to be completely honest with you. Even the tunes that are basically just average are still good and still catchy. So I think from a musical perspective, from a graphical perspective, the game still looks good even to this day. Now, controls is one of those things where, in retrospective, I do feel a little, it's not quite as good as I thought. Now, and part of that is because Sonic takes a minute to accelerate, to get going, basically. But I mean, outside of that, it's fairly simple to control. I mean, on the original Genesis, A, B, or C, it does jump. So I mean, it's literally a one-button game, not counting the directional pad. That's all it is. So it's not a very complex game from a control perspective, but it does feel a little bit sluggish sometimes compared to some other platformers, at least in my personal opinion. But I'm not going to say that's a big negative. It's just something I've noticed, and something that I can compare to other games that have come out, before and after it, basically. But I still think the game controls well. The controls are still good. Not the greatest in the world, but they're still good. Now, there are definitely some things about the game. Like, initially, my biggest gripe with the game was the special stages. And I still stick by that sentiment, because the special stages are very annoying, to say the least. I'm not a big fan of the special stages. And one of the things I wanted to do before I reviewed this game is I wanted to try and play it as if I had an actual Genesis. So basically, most of the time I played this game, I've used save states. I haven't really sat down and tried to play all the way through it, like normal, basically, without save states. And I did that today, and it wasn't easy, but I was able to beat the game. I didn't get the good ending, and the reason I didn't get that is because of the whole Chaos Emeralds and the special stages. I got 3 of the 6 Chaos Emeralds, so I got halfway there. I was able to have just enough continues from playing the special stages to basically beat the game. So from that perspective, it's not super difficult from a difficulty perspective, though there is some challenge. And for me, the most challenging aspect to the game was obviously Labyrinth Zone. And of course, like I said, the special stages. Special stages are just, they're very finicky to control, to say the least. Finicky, a little bit on the psychedelic side. Definitely my least favorite part of the game would be this. As far as the actual zones themselves, like I kind of alluded to, Labyrinth Zone was the one that gave me the most trouble. In fact, I almost didn't make it past it. That's how difficult it was for me. But once I got past Labyrinth Zone, obviously Starlight Zone, I find it funny. Starlight Zone, at least in my opinion, was probably the easiest zone in the entire game. And it's funny because it's like the next to last one. And it's just so incredibly easy. And it still is. It just always is. It's just a very easy zone, but I mean, it's still fun. It's just a straight fun zone. The music's good, and it's just a blast to play through there. But it's very easy. It just seems odd that zone being so easy is so late in the game. But it was one of those things today when I played it. I was grateful for it being so easy because I was able to get another continue, and that helped me to actually beat the game in one sitting. So I was able to do that, and so from that perspective, that's another thing I'd like to see from a game is, back in the day, how difficult would it have been to play on the actual hardware, basically. And in this case, I don't think it's that bad. Like I said, a little bit of a challenge, but I don't think it's anything that any moderately skilled player should be able to make it through. There are some frustrating aspects to it, but overall it's not super frustrating, and at the end of the day I still had a good time playing it, even normally. And so yeah, I still think that my score of 80% still holds up for this game. I know that, or I should say that a lot of the other Sonic games that came after this improved on the formula and are most likely a lot better. The series itself has kind of a bit of a mixed history, as it were, but I think all the early games, to the best of my knowledge, most of them, if not all of them, were very well received. So I believe that as I play through these games, they should only get better. Now, I say that with the exception of the 8-bit games. I was a little bit soured on the 2 Master System games, so I don't really want to play any of the 8-bit games. I'm not going to. But I feel that this series, at least initially, lends itself very well to playing it in pairs. So for me, the next game I want to play in the Sonic series will be Sonic CD. And chronologically, it just seems to fit a little bit better to put Sonic CD in there rather than 2. So yeah, I'll play Sonic and Sonic CD together, and we'll just kind of see how the series evolves as I progress playing through the games, and I actually look forward to it. But if you've never played Sonic the Hedgehog, and I guess that usually just applies to people like me, the very, very few people who haven't played it, but if you're one of those people who hasn't given it a shot, but you're interested in these older 16-bit platformers and whatnot, I think it's definitely something that I would highly recommend. It's fairly easy, to say the least. Okay, there is one thing I do want to point out, though. This game is sadly a little bit more difficult to obtain nowadays than it should be. It's not on Steam anymore, which is just a bloody shame that it's not there, because, you know, I think originally the list price, if I'm not mistaken, was maybe like $4.99 or something, but I got it on sale and I bought the entire Genesis collection on Steam, and I got a very good deal on it, to say the least. But they removed that version of Sonic from the Steam store, and so you can't actually buy this version anymore. You have to buy Sonic Origins. Now, I don't know anything about Sonic Origins, and this obviously isn't a review of that, but some people have not been as open to, have been a little more critical of the Origins changes that were made to the games. But I don't know how accurate or whatnot that is, but I do want to point that out. I believe you should still be able to get this game on consoles like the Nintendo Switch, the Xbox, and the PlayStation. You should still be able to get this version of the game, because unlike Steam, where every game counts as DLC, basically it all comes in one package. So from that perspective, you should still be able to get it if you have a console or you're a console player and you weren't able to get it before on Steam. If Steam is your preferred way of playing a lot of video games, then basically Sonic Origins is the only legal means of obtaining this game now. But like I said, I'm not going to, criticize or anything with the Origins version of the game because I don't have any familiarity with it. I think theoretically there's an Android and maybe Apple version as well, but I mean, I wouldn't recommend playing a game like this on a mobile device, but that's just me. I mean, if you're someone who likes to play mobile games, then this may be something to consider, but I mean, personally, I wouldn't recommend it. So there are still ways of getting the game. It's just, and the other thing is like Switch Online Expansion Pass. The only Sonic game that's available in the Switch Online Expansion Pass is Sonic 2. So you can't even play Sonic the Hedgehog 1 on the Expansion Pass, which is kind of unfathomable, to be completely honest with you. It's like, why is it not there? But that's Nintendo and the way they like to drip games onto the service, which I'm not a huge fan of, but there's that. As of April 2024, the original Sonic the Hedgehog is not on the Switch Online service either. So yeah, the only way to get it is via the either Sonic Origins, and it's not the same game, it's an upscaled game basically, or you have to get it on console. So I do want to point that out. So it shouldn't be this rare. I mean, in fact, it was always very readily available in previous generations back all the way to like the PlayStation 2 and whatnot. So the fact that they're making it a little difficult to obtain the first Sonic is kind of mind-boggling, but overall that doesn't really affect my my view of the game. So however you can come about playing this game, and I will not judge you depending on your method of playing the game, it's definitely worth playing for sure. So anyway, that's my thoughts on Sonic the Hedgehog. Looking forward to playing some of the other ones because this is a great introduction to the series, and I'm looking forward to it only getting better from here. So anyway, thank you very much for watching this video, and I'll see you on the next one. Take care.